Well, everyone, it's time to take a look at some budget offerings from both Google and, iPhones, for example. Now, I love the iPhone SE lineup. I think the SE3 is a little interesting. Some reason Google made a really good phone for the Pixel 5a. I will tell you though, these two phones are a little bit interesting because, and I was kind of afraid to kind of compare them because they are such different sizes. The iPhone SE3 is a much smaller phone. The Pixel 5a is a much bigger phone. But surprisingly, the Pixel 5a is about $70 cheaper than something like an iPhone SE3. This phone costs about $349. You can pick it up for much cheaper in the used market. The iPhone SE3 is retailing for $429. So very, kind of differences when you come down to it. So if you want to pick up either one of these phones, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, like you can see, the iPhone SE3 is a much smaller phone. The Pixel 5a on the front has a massive 6.34-inch OLED panel. Now it's a whole bunch display, and this design is very current. I mean, this phone, if you looked at it, I mean, it looks pretty much like a brand new phone. This phone has been out for a few months, so it's not an old phone, but for the price that Google has placed on this device, it is crazy how much better of a phone this thing feels than the iPhone SE3. I'm actually pretty surprised. Now, I will say the iPhone SE3 feels more premium, but the display of this phone looks so much better. It's still 60 hertz, so there's no like 120 hertz here. But this is a very, very good panel. On the iPhone SE3, on the other hand, we have a 4.7-inch IPS panel. The resolution is smaller here. It's a smaller size panel. But I will say this panel isn't an ugly looking panel. It's still pretty good looking, but I'm not a fan of the bezels. I'm not a fan of the home button. There's no gesture-based design here. This is a very old-fashioned phone nowadays. And for some reason, I don't know why Apple decided to stick with this design. I mean, I know why they did it. It saves them money. It makes them more money. But when you look at someone like Google, who's able to make a better-looking phone and a better-feeling phone in some cases than the iPhone SE3, and it's cheaper than this iPhone, it's pretty crazy to me. I'll just kind of say, I'll just leave it there. It's just insane to me, in my opinion. In terms of thickness and thickness, the Pixel 5a is a much bigger phone and a much thicker phone as well. The iPhone SE3 feels much more premium, but it is a thinner phone. And on the back, we have a glass back on the iPhone SE3, and the Pixel 5a has this aluminum back, fingerprint sensor right here too. Dual camera setup on the Pixel 5a, I forgot about that. We have a single camera setup on the iPhone SE3. Now, this is what I'll tell you about this specific phone on the back. Both of them feel good, right? One doesn't feel substantially, way less premium than the other one, but I will say it is very surprising to me that the iPhone SE3 feels as premium as something even like an iPhone 13. It definitely feels that premium. But the Pixel 5a, on the other hand, it doesn't really feel super expensive, but it doesn't feel cheap either. It definitely looks much better, I think, than the iPhone SE, at least on the front. Now, the SE does have wireless charging, the Pixel 5a doesn't have it, and I don't think there's any IP certification on the Pixel 5a either, so that's kind of another thing to keep in mind. Overall, I'll probably tell you the Pixel 5a looks like the better, phone, but the iPhone SE3 feels like the better phone in some areas. Now, I will tell you another thing to keep in mind is with software. The Pixel 5a and the iPhone are rocking stock software, which is good. The Pixel 5a is probably going to be lasting for many more years. Same with the iPhone SE3. There's going to be a custom ROM community behind this phone too, which is always good to see. With something like the iPhone SE3 though, I mean, you'll probably end up upgrading your phone with both of these before they even get, before they stop getting software support. So as I mentioned before, that's a pretty big thing to keep in mind. You don't want to go get a phone and then have it automatically outdated, and that is pretty much not what you're getting on either one of these. So I think that's a pretty good thing. With the iPhone SE3, great feeling phone, great performing phone, it's going to last for a long time. The Pixel 5a is also going to be a phone that's going to be supported for many, many more years too. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between both these devices. The Pixel 5a has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G chipset inside of it, with 6 GB of RAM, where the iPhone SE3 has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 GB of RAM. So let's go and see which one is the faster one between both of these. Okay, there we go. Hopefully the sunlight isn't blocking too much stuff. Let me go and clear all the apps in the background. Should only take a second or two. There we go. So let's get into it. Let's do phone calls, 3, 2, 1. And the iPhone SE3, substantially faster there. Camera, 3, 2, 1. And I'm surprised I got that at the same time. And you can see Pixel 5a a little bit, actually I don't know which one was faster there. I think the Pixel 5 was slower. Let's go and hop out of there. Let's go into Play Store, 3, 2, 1. And both were actually very fast. I don't know if one was way fast. Maybe the iPhone SE3 was a little bit faster there. Scrolling through here, kind of the same thing, not really that big of a difference. But I'll probably give the edge to something like the iPhone SE3 there. As always, we have a bunch of these third-party apps we can go and test. Let's go ahead and do something like Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. Now, there's a chance this game might flop on both of these. I actually don't remember. I think the iPhone SE3 is able to load it up. Now, you can see the downloaded config little option down there. Sometimes that does end up taking a little bit of time, and that sometimes, affects the speed. So I will tell you that may be something to keep in mind. However, I'm still actually pretty surprised how much faster the iPhone SE3 has been for the last couple of applications. So hopping out of this one, for some reason, I don't know why the iPhone SE3 is doing that. BOFA 321. And the iPhone SE3 again is the faster one, but I did close out of it before, so that kind of screwed that one up. Let's go and get into Instagram 321. I think the Pixel 5a was faster there. Twitter 321. The iPhone SE3 was faster. Pixel 5a a little bit slower. I have to stop closing out of these apps. Snake vs. Blocks 321. I'm kind of closing out of them early. And actually, the Pixel 5a was faster there, so that was very strange. I was not expecting that. Gameplay wise, I think it's probably going to be roughly around the same. Hopping out of this one, let's do stack 321. And the Pixel 5a was a little bit slower here. The iPhone SE was a little bit faster there when it came down to it. Quizlet 321. iPhone SE3 is faster, Pixel 5a a little bit behind. Snapchat 321. And I actually don't know which one was faster there, but I can definitely tell you from this little speed comparison that I just did, there's actually some speed improvements with the iPhone SE3. I think that is the better phone and the faster phone here, which is expected. This is on the Pixel 5a is already kind of a budget chipset when it comes down to it. It's not even like the main Snapdragon of last year. So it was already supposed to be a budget chipset. The iPhone SE on the other hand has the main flagship chipset of the Pixel lineup of the iPhone lineup, which is really impressive. So definitely not complete apples to apples, but the iPhone SE is definitely the faster one when it comes down to it. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between them. Now let's go and hit on the cameras. Now on the back, the iPhone SE has a single 12 megapixel lens. You can do 4K at 60 on it, which is really nice. On the Pixel 5a, on the other hand, you have a dual camera setup. You have a 12.2 megapixel wide angle lens, then you have a 16 megapixel ultra wide lens too. Both can do 4K at 60 on the back, and both can do 1080p on the front. Now with the Pixel 5a camera, I think it was actually pretty impressive. Let me go ahead and focus in. This was actually a very crazy lens in my opinion, just because Google was able to put in such a decent lens on such a budget tier phone at the price tag that it is. I'm actually pretty impressed how cheap it was and how good of a camera it was. Definitely not perfect as I mentioned before, but it gets the job done. And I definitely would say, I don't know if it's necessarily the better phone between them, but it's definitely a really solid phone when it comes down to it. With something like the iPhone SE 3rd generation, I think this is a very solid camera too, but there's no 4K at 60 on the front of either one of these, which is kind of a downside, but there's no ultra wide sensor here. That's something that kind of saddens me. I would love to see more than one lens on something like the iPhone SE 3, and we didn't get that, which kind of throws me off. But I will tell you that the quality of this lens is still pretty decent. I've gotten really good results from this camera. I like the Pixel 5a camera a little bit more as a whole, just because it does have that ultra wide sensor, and it does have a few more features built in, but this is still a really good lens too, and I don't really think one is way substantially better than the other one here. So now that takes us to the end, and to be completely honest, I think something like the Pixel 5a is the more surprising one for it being cheaper than this iPhone and for it to be as good as it is. I'm actually pretty surprised how good of a job Samsung or Google was able to do with something like the Pixel 5a. I think it is probably the better phone when it comes down to it, and you have a headphone jack on this phone too that I forgot about. I think with something like the Pixel with the iPhone SE3, it's a solid phone. I think it's a good phone, but it's just not a good phone for the price. That's kind of been the catchphrase here. I just don't think it's really worth the money for this type of device. And that's kind of the sad thing. If Google can make this phone $349, I don't know why Apple couldn't have made this phone, $299 or something like that. For $429 for it being substantially faster, for it to be for it to be more expensive than this one, it is a better phone in some cases, but there's a lot of cases where the Pixel 5a is better too. So that kind of covers it. If you have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.